you see in young women who are discerning becoming a religious, maybe some of the pitfalls they fall into, some things that they need to be, I don't know, maybe the way they discern is problematic, or like, for example, the reason I ask that is I talk to young men who are discerning the priesthood, and it seems like they're only discerning, and that's all they do, and there's never a decision made. Or speaking for myself, I remember when I was discerning the priesthood, I would priest hop, as it were. Like, I would get super into this one religious order, and then I'd check out this other one, and I would never really kind of make a decision. What are you seeing as you chat with young women?
That is one of the things, exactly what you just described. But I would say the piece of advice.
But speak to that more, though.
I will, yeah. So I see the people who are just like, there seems to be this paralysis of not wanting to take the next step, of not wanting to maybe visit the monastery, or of not wanting to do an extended visit, or not wanting to do an observership, which is what we call the first stage of kind of serious discernment in our monastery, where you come for a 3 to 6 week visit, or they're not willing to take the step to enter, or something like that. But the piece of advice that I usually give to people, and this is something that really Father Michael, my spiritual father, that he helped me along with, because I was struggling with that kind of paralyzing fear, because we're just so afraid of commitment in our society, and I think it's because we're so surrounded by broken commitment that we don't even trust in ourselves to be able to commit.
Yep, that makes sense.
And we see how much the broken commitments damage, and we even subconsciously just don't want to cause that damage. And, so the advice that I usually give to people is, don't be afraid to take this step, because, and there is one other big thing that I want to talk about, but don't be afraid to take this step, because to come visit the monastery is not a commitment to be there forever. To come on observership is not a commitment to be there forever. We've had multiple people come on observership who then didn't enter the monastery, and we are friends with them, and we love them. And, one of them in particular, I'm very close, 2 actually, I'm very close with still. And then to enter the monastery is not a commitment to be a nun for the rest of your life. It's not even a commitment to be a nun. It's not a commitment to being tonsured. It's like, it's all parts of the discernment. And what I tell people is, if you're under the guidance, absolutely under the guidance of a spiritual director, and under the guidance of the superior of the community and the community itself, which is the other thing I'm going to talk about in a second. If you're wondering, if you're feeling any pull towards this, like, try it. Because if this is something I really needed to hear myself, if I go to the monastery for 6 months or a year, in fact, even if at this point I discerned out, I will not feel like it was wasted time, And I think that can especially be a temptation for women, because we have biological clocks.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm supposed to get married, I don't want to waste time discerning a monastic life, when I really should find my husband ASAP so that we can start having kids. And which, by the way, is just like a very utilitarian way of looking at marriage. But anyways, there's if you go to the monastery and you end up after 2 years discerning out, you are going to be so much better of a wife and so much better of a mother for having spent that 2 years learning how to pray, learning how to live in community, learning how to love the Lord above all else. Because if you're married, you still need to love the Lord above your husband and above your children. And it's just the time there is so formative that it's not wasted time. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest fears for people, is they don't want to pursue this and waste their time. And so that's a fear that I try to allay. But the other thing that I'll say that I think is very prevalent in our society is, people think that their discernment is just that. It's their discernment. And so if I think I'm called to the monastery, then I'm called to the monastery. And that's just not all encompassing, because it's a discernment on the part of the community.
Yes.
It's very much. And
you have no interest in forcing people who will be bad nuns in against, that would just make your life more miserable.
Exactly. Yeah. And their life. Yeah. It's like, and that's something that honestly, I mean, our community has problems. All communities have problems, just like every family has problems. But one of the things that I most appreciate about our community, about Mother Theodora, the Hegumena, is that she's never, from the beginning, she's never been concerned about the numbers, right? So for her, it's never been like, she's never chased after anyone. She's never pressured anyone. In fact, she like probably should have pressured me a little bit more. But maybe she was right because God got me there. But, you know, she's just very much like, God's will. I want God's will. Because we all know at our monastery that if we don't want God's will, we're not going to be happier for it. The discerner is not going to be happier for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a lose-lose.
Yeah. Like I at the end of my observership, again, that 3 to 6 week visit, everyone else who's entered the monastery, either during their observership or immediately after applied to the monastery. I didn't for like a year or something like that because at the end of my observership, I was like, I'm not ready. And I don't think I can, I probably talked about this a little bit last time, but I don't think I can't imagine a happy and holy marriage for myself. And I don't want to do this if I think it's the only way I can be holy. I want to do it if I think it's the way God wants me to be holy, and but not if I think it's the only way I can be holy, because that's not.
Do you know I had the exact opposite experience. When I was living in Brisbane, I couldn't imagine myself as a successful husband and father in everything that entailed. Mm-hmm. And it was my men's group at the time who pointed that out. So I was very much discerning, so the friars of the renewal, and very much excited about that and looking into that. And I just thought, like, every aspect of fatherhood and husbandhood, you know, I'd be a bad father, a bad provider, a bad lover, like everything I would suck at. That's I was convinced of that. And it was not a good reason to become a priest.
Right. And so that's where I felt at the end of my observership. I was like, I can't imagine a happy and holy marriage for myself. And so I was like, if I enter the monastery right now, it's going to be because I'm running away from an unholy marriage. And we should not discern things because we're running away from another good. You know, it should be because we feel we're called to a greater good or a different good. And so at the end of my observership, I tell Mother, you know, I don't think I can apply right now. I think like I need to further discern marriage. And she was like, great, go do that. Date if you need to, and you know, whatever you need to do. And I'm like, okay. So I leave. I dated a guy.
Oh wow.
And then eventually, obviously, we broke up. We did break up. And so yeah, Mother's just been, you know, she's just like, go, you know, God's will be done. And Father Michael also was very supportive. You know, he's like, whatever God wants. And she has this great trust and confidence in, like, if God wants this, it'll happen. So.
I'm also not sure what the incentive would be for the mother or the father of a particular monastery to wish to grow unnecessarily. I don't even know what the advantage in that would be. Like, having someone come and live with you who ought not to be there would be like me just saying, hey, you want to come live with my family? And just, you can have a spare room and just live with us forever?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
You know,
unless they felt called to it and we discerned it as well.
Right. I would imagine... I obviously don't have any firsthand experience of that because this is my only community. And like I said, that's not a struggle in our particular community. But I would imagine part of it is just, even in the monastery, we get attitudes of the world that just seep in. And one of those attitudes is like, more
Success.
nuns looks better. Yeah. And so I would imagine, I hope that this is the case, that superiors who do that, superiors who press for more nuns, or who press for certain people to enter who probably don't have a call to monasticism, I would hope that they're doing it not because they see they don't have a call and are pressing it anyways. I would hope they're doing it because they want these numbers, and so they've kind of like self-deceived into thinking this person has a call. Yeah. You know, it's more like they maybe get the intuition that this person isn't supposed to be here, but they kind of like push that aside and convince themselves. So I would hope that when they do it, they've convinced themselves this person has a call.
When I was discerning the priesthood back when I was 17 in Australia, it did feel like, at least to me, and maybe I was misreading it, but it felt like some of the religious orders I had contacted were like, please God, save our dying community. And that's not attractive. Exactly. It'd be like me meeting an old woman who's like, please let me have children. I'm like 40 and this can't go on forever. Please marry me. I'm like, first of all, you're 23 years older than me, which is weird. So. You also just, to all your listeners, called 40-year-old women old. I know. Well, older than me. I was 17 at the time. That's why I said 24 years old, 23, 24 years old. Yeah, like it's just not attractive. Like to be begged into something, it's
Right.
not attractive in religious life. It's not attractive in kind of romantic life.
Yeah. But
But the point, I think, just quickly, the point you were making is so important that people realize. It's like you might discern this, but you're not the only one in this process.
Absolutely,
You have
yeah.
other beautiful, holy women who are discerning as well, and so
Right.
you can also trust in that.
Yes, absolutely.
If you like that clip, be sure to like and subscribe. Cheers.